Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Show. This is our Wednesday edition. We're on from Wednesday to Sunday, 8 through 10 a.m. We're live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. We have our other platforms on Instagram and Twitter. Like, comment, share, and subscribe when possible. Check out our great website at macandjacksports.com. It's called Mac Sports Insiders for information on all insiders, articles, team public relations updates. Our great sponsors' links are there for their products and services. I'm Mac with your co-host Jack Hirsch, legendary boxing writer and former president of the Boxing Writers Association of America, bringing you national sports with special focus on Northeast professional sports from New York, Boston, and Philly. How you doing today, Jack?
Yeah, good morning, Mac.
Jack, we have an action-packed full show today. 8:10 scheduled in. We have the safety and the sports writer, a broadcast out of Connecticut, and we'll talk to them. And then at 8:30, we have our Philly sports guy coming in, Jamie Pags, with information about Philly sports, and there's a lot to get to with him. And at 9 o'clock, we have the famous New York broadcaster Lance Meadows covering the Giants. He's formerly on Westwood One, ESPN. He's on the Big Blue View, a Giants show, and he also he's just the busiest man I know, Jack. I mean, this guy is in everything. So well, it's great to have him on. He has an in-depth knowledge of the Giants. So, Jack, we're going to get to the sports updates before we have our guests come on. Kevin Green, a Hall of Fame linebacker with the Rams, Steelers, 49ers, and Carolina, passed away at 58 years old, Jack. I remember him playing with the Steelers. He was a great linebacker and a heck of a pass rusher.
Great player. The cause of death is unknown at this time. I mean, it wasn't released, but a great player. I mean, he made his impact during, his years in the NFL. Had
Definitely.
a nice career. Hall of Famer, great career. I should
Yeah,
say
he was.
Nice career, great career.
Yes, he was. The 49ers signed your man there, Josh Rosen of Tampa Bay, to their practice squad. And, there's something to be said about Josh Rosen. I mean, he was drafted later than he thought he should have been. He seemed to be a little upset about it. And he really didn't get a chance with the Cardinals, Jack, because, they had Kyler Murray, who came in the following year with that new head coach that wanted to run a certain system. He got moved around. He played at Miami. Didn't do too well there either, Jack. I mean, he had problems there. He got moved to the practice squad. Here's a young quarterback that kind of got ruined, I think. I mean,
he wasn't on the. I don't think he was on the practice squad with Miami.
No, he started a couple.
With Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
When he got traded to Tampa Bay, they signed him for their practice squad there. But what's very interesting, earlier this year, Josh Rosen was in the stands during one of the Tampa Bay Buccaneer games because, as you know, the players on the practice squad can't play during the game, so they watch the game from the stands. And the game was on Fox. And Troy Aikman, who knows Josh Rosen well, said Josh Rosen hasn't even touched the surface yet on what he can accomplish. He thinks Josh Rosen could be an outstanding quarterback in this league.
No, don't misunderstand me. He was at Miami. He actually started a couple of games for them. But at that time, Miami sure wasn't the team it is now, Jack. And, in fact, I'm not sure. But I think Adam Gase was the head coach when he had a shot to play at Miami, if I'm not mistaken.
It was under Brian Flores.
Right.
It wasn't Adam Gase. It was Brian Flores. What happened at Arizona? They were going to stick with him as the starter. But when they were able to get Kyler Murray, that basically signaled the end of Josh Rosen's time there.
Right.
Then he went to Miami, and they had an open mind of making him the starter, but Ryan Fitzpatrick picked up things so much quicker. The knock on Josh Rosen is he's not a quick learner, or maybe doesn't work hard enough to learn. That's been the knock on him.
Well, going to the 49ers might be a blessing. I mean, they have their quarterback that's the second string quarterback over there right now. If he gets injured, he may have a shot to play. So maybe there'll be a blessing in disguise for him. Because of a trade in 2019, Miami may be the first team in 2 decades that could get a top 3 pick while going to the playoffs, Jack. They made a big trade with, I think it was Houston.
Houston, yeah.
If Houston continues to lose, they have a stockpile of draft picks coming up, Jack, and we'll see what happens. But Miami may have a top 3 first-round draft pick at the end of the year, depending on Houston. And of course, the NBA has started. It took me by surprise, honestly.
Yeah, wow.
You had the Lakers playing the Clippers. The Clippers, I think, won that one, and also Brooklyn. And we'll touch on it a little bit more in the show. As I told you, folks, backstage we have one of the co-hosts of the Connecticut Sports Podcast. We're waiting for the other one to come in at 10 after. They should be up, and we should have some fun with those guys. I can't wait.
Right. What was of note in the Nets beating the Golden State Warriors 125-99? Not only was that the largest margin of victory in the net opener in their history, but Kevin Durant, it was his first game back since the Achilles injury, and he played very, very well. He didn't look like he's lost much, so that was a very good sign. And of course, the LA Clippers beat the Los Angeles Lakers 116-109, I think. But the Lakers usually lose their home opener. They start a little slow and then they come on. So nothing to get alarmed about from their perspective.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, LeBron and of course Davis will be there at the end of the year, and they did make some moves this year to even strengthen that a little bit. So let's cover it real quick. The Magic beat the Hornets. Miami was a big surprise last year, doing what they did, making it through the playoffs. To the finals, and I mean, they beat the Hornets, and they're coming out again, blazing, Jack. So
Miami beat the Hornets. You mean?
Yes. The Hawks beat the Grizzlies, and the Wizards beat the Pistons, and that's it for the 4 games of last night. I think the 76ers and the Knicks played today, Jack, and we'll talk about that a little bit with the Philly sports guy when he comes on in a few. What I want to do, I want to bring up one of the co-hosts so we can talk to him a little bit, Knoxville Nate. And as I said, we're still waiting on the other co-host. But if he's ready, I know you can hear us, Nat. You're ready to come up? We'll bring him up right now and talk to him a little bit, and hopefully the other co-host makes it in. So let's bring up Knoxville. How you doing, Knoxville?
I'm doing great, Mac and Jack. How are you guys today?
How you doing?
You're the safety on the podcast, if I'm correct.
That is correct. Former safety. As you can see, I'm no longer in playing shape. But Joe Ryan is the sports writer, and I was the safety.
Okay,
you can tackle Mac's questions, which I don't always agree with.
You're looking pretty good shape to me right now, Nate.
Thank you.
Let me start with I'm from Connecticut also, Nate, and being from Connecticut, there's not a lot of sports here. I mean, we did way back when we did have back in the 1920s, we did have professional baseball. We had the Whalers for quite a long time up here, and I'm still upset that they left and that they didn't take care of them. But our biggest claim to fame in Connecticut, and I'm just setting this up before we get into the other questions, is of course the girls basketball team having that perfect season, and really that's it. And so on your show over there at the safety and the sports writer, from what I saw, you not only talk about just Connecticut, you talk about a lot of national sports. Do you stick to the regional? I mean, the New York, Boston area, or is it everything?
Well, we started off as mainly Connecticut sports, and that's Joe, my co-host. He was the guy that kind of started the show. Him and our producer Steve D. And it began as a spinoff of their television show, and we covered all things Connecticut sports. But when they brought me on Ohio and lived in New York City, so I brought the element of the rest of the country. So now we're talking sports across the board. We're primarily hitting football these days, just because that's what I know most about, NCAA and also a little NFL.
Well, we got Joe in, so we're going to bring him up, and we'll start talking to both of you here about your podcast and your show. How you doing, Joe?
Hey guys, how you doing this morning?
Good morning.
Great to see you.
Great
Joe,
to be seen. How you doing?
I noticed the Ohio State shirt on, so I don't have to ask where you stand. Oh, wow. Yes, I don't have to ask where you stand on there being included in the national championship playoffs.
No, you don't. I'm pretty happy about it. Obviously, I would have loved to have seen some more games this year. But we played the six that we were able to play, and we won them all. So as far as I'm concerned, the committee made the right choice. But
just one quick question. Justin Fields, is he nearly as good as Trevor Lawrence? Nearly.
Well, he hasn't looked as good recently. Prior to this season and from all the games last year, I would have said yes. But, he's thrown some interceptions the last few games, and he's been hanging on to the ball a little bit too long. And, he's kind of gone away from what makes him, unique, which is his ability to run and throw. And so, I'm a little concerned about it. I think just all the guys – we were missing 21 guys in the Big Ten championship game, and we were missing 23 the game before against Michigan State. So obviously it's been a season like no other, and I think it has affected him. But we're going to see what he's all about real quick once they get up against Clemson, because, we lost a heartbreaker last year in the semifinal, and we need to get back on top and return the favor, because these guys have had our number.
Hey, Big Joe, let me ask you. I talked to Nate a little bit about this. Connecticut sports. I'm from Connecticut. We're kind of divided here, with Massachusetts and New York. Yankees, Red Sox, Giants, Patriots. So, as far as Connecticut goes, I asked Nate this, and I know you're from Connecticut. It's a shame. It's a shame to me that and I'm going to go back and talk about the Whalers a little bit.
My team.
Yeah, mine too. I went to see them play a couple times, and it seemed to me that Connecticut really never supported the Whalers the way they should have. The local government here having them play in the Civic Center, which was a beautiful arena, but parking was terrible, and getting out of the city was really bad. Do you think that maybe if they built their own stadium with just parking around it, say in Farmington or in an area like that, New Britain, do you think the Whalers would have been more successful having?
You got to remember that Connecticut has always been kind of the puppet between Boston and New York. I mean, going way back to the 50s when guys used to have to come up to, remember, he used to have to come to Stratford to see Giant games on TV because of the blackouts. And, it's always been a dividing line around Meriden. You're either a Boston fan or a New York fan. And remember, even Kraft played with our emotions thinking the Patriots were going to come to Hartford years ago. That's why Rensselaer Stadium was put up. So it's kind of there. We don't really have the problem because everybody here, their families have been such New York or Boston fans for years. I mean, the Whalers had a nice cottage industry of fans, but most were Bruins or Ranger fans. And most people who went up there went because they couldn't get tickets at the Garden, at either of the Gardens, Boston Garden or Madison Square Garden. So that's where a lot of their fan base came from. So it's kind of hard because you're dealing with some of the most powerful teams: the Red Sox, Yankees, the Giants, now the Patriots, the Celtics, the Knicks. They're so established and in this area. It's so hard to get a pro team to come here and kind of get into that, make a name for themselves. It's really tough. And that's why I heard you talking about the UConn women and the UConn men for a while. We're kind of, that was our source of pride. Right. I mean, I would love, I hated the fact that the Whalers won their cup down in Carolina.
I agree. I agree, Big Joe. And I remember I used to go to the games at Yale Bowl when the Giants moved there because they were building the stadium and they got kicked out of Yankee Stadium. And the times I went, it was pretty packed. So I think Connecticut, depending on where it was, this stadium, like you mentioned, Robert Kraft kind of teasing us, wanting Mass to build them a better stadium. I think Connecticut could support a sports team, but as you say, I mean, the loyalty runs deep here in Connecticut with Boston and New York, so it's hard to do. I also talked to Nate, Big Joe, about what you guys do over there, and I want you to take turns explaining your podcast to the people that are viewing this and listening to this right now, so they can jump over and kind of check out your podcast. I mean, I know you guys, from what I saw, cover national sports, especially with Nate over there. And I'm going to get to you about Ohio State in a minute, Nate, because I ain't through with that. Let us know what you guys do over there, so they can come over there and check you guys out.
Well, we started as an idea as a sport. I kind of my frustration because of how the Connecticut newspapers got taken over by the Hearst team. They don't cover local sports anymore. They really don't cover anything around here. Barely even UConn. We have right here in the state, we have 3 of the best college hockey teams in the nation last year, and no one was covering them. So the thought was to start with, a Connecticut sports show and see what we could come up with. And then I met Nate, and he has such a great knowledge about, especially football and basketball, recruiting from high school through the pros. He can talk on. He's a nut the way he gets out there and covers everything. And the thing was, I was saying, well, it would be a waste not to expand to that. We're still trying to find our niche. I think we try and do the pros in the college, especially football and basketball. I'd like to sneak in some hockey, but he's one of those Southern guys who don't like hockey. But anyways, it's just we're developing our thing right now, and right now it's becoming it's kind of work in progress because we started out on Blog Talk Radio, and now just over the last 2 months we're on a video format, so we're trying to get some guests in. And basically, we're trying to find our niche in what is becoming an expanding, podcast world. But I think we concentrate basically on college and pro football and basketball, and we try and give our angles on it. And like I said, we're looking to bring in more fans. We're looking to bring in guests, and we want to just kind of fill a niche and bring some fun, entertaining sports to a fan base.
That's great. Hey, Nate, I'm going to get back to you on Ohio State. Now, Ohio State is one of the top 4 colleges and programs in the country. There's no doubt about that. Playing 6 games, especially in this type of season, I think not only it's unfair that Ohio State gets in the top 4, especially with other teams that have 1 loss and some that are undefeated that, have played 10, 12 games, and, they're not getting the recognition of playing in the championship. And I'll give you an example. I'm a Notre Dame fan at heart. I don't think Notre Dame could beat Cincinnati, to tell you the truth. I think Notre Dame's a very good program, but they're not top of the line. They're not Clemson. They're not Alabama. They're a very good squad. They're almost there, but they can't get to the top, in my opinion. And to me, a team like Cincinnati, especially in this year, that's undefeated, why don't we let them in there and see what they can do against Notre Dame or Clemson or Alabama? I mean, they may get killed, but so may Notre Dame, and so may some other teams. Why not in this type of situation with COVID and Ohio State playing only 6 games? Why don't we allow a team like Cincinnati or Texas or Florida in there?
Well, I think there's definitely politics in it. I think I'm a big fan of Cincinnati, to be honest with you. They used to be one of my customers, and I love Coach Fickle. I have known him for a long time, and I'm very proud of the job he's done there. But whether or not Cincinnati could compete with the Alabamas and the Clemsons, I'm not sure. But as we've talked about on our podcast, we would love to see an expanded playoff.
Yeah,
That was one of the things that we really wanted to see. Me and Joe, especially this year with the COVID and all the things that are going on with the pandemic in this country and all the changes that we've had to make. We're like, why doesn't the NCAA step up? Actually make a decision, do something good for once, both for the fans and the student athletes, and expand the playoff to 8 games. That's what I would like to see.
I like 16 teams in there. This way you get a Cinderella team like Indiana, and you reward them, and it would be so exciting for the state of Indiana. If one of their schools is in there.
No, I agree. I mean, the more the merrier for me. More football makes me more happy. So as much football as we can get, we're good with. But we definitely, on our show and publicly, we pushed for the NCAA to do something like that and expand the playoffs because, that's what makes the March Madness and the, basketball tournament so interesting is you do get these smaller schools that come in. And if they have a good team that year, they can compete against the big dogs and make some noise, and the entire country gets behind them. So I would love to see, Coastal Carolina, Indiana, Cincinnati get a chance at this. But the way that they've got it narrowed down to this 4-team deal, it makes it very difficult for those little teams to get a chance. And as much as I'd love to see it, it makes it hard with the way that the politics work and the way that they've only allowing 4 teams to play.
You know what bothers me, guys, is that we know at the beginning of the year basically who's going to be in the national championship, and that makes it boring. I mean, I come up with this idea, Joe. Maybe I don't know. It sounds crazy to some people. Some people like it. Why don't we break down the college, the NCAA, the Division I schools, and the teams that got a shot at making the championship, and teams that absolutely shouldn't even be in Division 1A. And I'll give you an example, UConn. UConn will never, ever get to the national championship. So if we broke that down and made divisions like they have in the NFL, have playoffs, this way everybody gets a legitimate shot at playing everybody and have like a college Super Bowl at the end of the year. What do you think about that?
I totally agree with that. I think it would be good. I think the conferences are a fallacy. They went out of vogue probably 20 years ago. It's ridiculous. Every conference, if you look around, tell me the day that Kansas is going to play Vanderbilt for a national championship. Right. They don't even belong. Those football teams don't even belong in the conferences they're in. So it's crazy to say that the conferences work anymore. I mean, like you said, before the season begins, maybe 5-6 teams best have a shot at the national championship. And there's no way to kind of for anybody to kind of work their way through that. It's just a maze that's there, and they take care of themselves with the schedule. Even their out of conference stuff is crap. I mean, when you have guys playing, teams like the Citadel. I mean, come on, Alabama puts the Citadel on their schedule. Why? It's ridiculous. So, yeah, I mean, the time of the big conferences is kind of coming to the end. And Nate and I have talked about this at length about take the top 20 teams, take the top 16 teams, like you said, and have them play each other. And throughout the year, if a 6-5 team like that are playing for a national championship, I have no problem with it. But the 12-0 teams that are beating up on teams that have no business being on the same field, and you can't even watch it anymore. It makes it hard in some cases. That's why the story of an Indiana for the first time in 30, 40 years being successful this year was so great for everybody. Yeah. But it took COVID and it took a lot of good situations. And I love their coach. And the other problem is, how long will that coach stay there?
Yeah. Very, very. I mean, listen, the recruiting is unfair. I mean, if you look at how these bigger schools can recruit, I mean, you can, and I go back to UConn because, like I say, I'm from here. I mean, you could put UMass in there and a lot of other teams. UConn football is actually losing money because of the requirements of draft, of recruiting, and how many players you have to have on there, and that hurts the whole program. When you have a college that has to do certain requirements with Division 1A to be in that division, and they have to do certain things, it hurts the whole program. It hurts basketball, it hurts baseball, it hurts everything. And, you know, most of the big programs out there support the whole college program. Ohio State going to the championship and their success supports the whole Ohio State sports program. And these are smaller teams can't keep up. Maybe they should have a little division for these guys to play in Division 1A where it would be more fair anyway. So
the hardest part I see too is that these big teams can stockpile talent. I mean, when you have the second and third and fourth string quarterbacks on a Clemson being among the best in the nation, and Purdue can't get one of them, or I name a college, they can't get one of them. I can't see the logic of it with a kid is because I say the only way you're getting noticed for the pros is to be on the field. But it seems like they're willing to sit there and wait their turn through red shirting and everything else. Maybe that's the thing we got to look at is getting rid of all the red shirting and all this stuff where they can sit around and wait for their turn on the bench.
Yeah. Yeah, I like how they've created this. We've got this new transfer portal, and it's going to be. You watch this year. It's going to be. There's going to be more people in it than ever because it's a new vehicle that these kids can use to move from one team to the other. And I like it. I think it's a good thing if these kids aren't getting to play, especially the quarterback position, and they can play at another school. Why not let them go instead of having them sit out for a year or having them sit and wait? Have them go somewhere else and make another school good and competitive and increase the product on the field, increase the quality of it.
Great points by both of you.
Well, the elite high school players, let me say, go to the major programs because they always have an eye on the NFL and they want to be seen in the national spotlight. So a school like the University of Minnesota, they just can't compete because they don't, have that same type of exposure, for the player to go to the next level.
Yeah, again, another great point. So, guys, we're coming to the close. We got the Philly Sports Guy coming up. Man, it's great having you guys on. I'd love to have you on again. I'll be in touch with you soon where we'll have more time. You guys are very knowledgeable. But before you go, who do you guys got in the NFL? And don't give me the Chiefs because everybody says that. Anybody but the Chiefs, who do you think is going to make it to the Super Bowl?
I'd say Bills. Let's see. I'm going to go Bills, Green Bay.
Okay, how about you?
I'm actually going the Bills versus the Saints, and I'm hoping that the Saints can pull it out. I want to see Drew Brees.
Only because they come from the South.
Hey, man, the Bills have been playing good football, and I think the Saints, if Drew Brees can get some, these last two games, use that to get a little bit of the rust off. I think the Saints have got a good chance at anybody.
That's two good picks to me. Guys, I appreciate y'all coming in and spending some time with us. I had to set you up at 18 because we got a packed show for the next few days, but I'm glad you guys came in. I will be back in touch with you very soon. We'd love to get you back on, and thank you very much for getting up early and joining us this morning.
Thank you. We'd love to have you on our shows as well.
Happy holiday, guys.
Happy
holidays.
Thank you guys for having us on. We enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you very much, guys. Very, people go over and check out the Safety and Sports Writer podcast. The Connecticut guys, as you just saw, they're very knowledgeable, great with sports, national and local. And when you get a chance, go over and check out their show. It's awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So there you go, Jack, with a great little team there from Connecticut.
Yeah.
They know their stuff. I mean, I thought I was the only one out here in Connecticut knew what they're talking about, but they were really.
Connecticut's got a ways to go,
Yes.
For a while.
If I'm the only guy that knows what they're talking about.
The guys, I meant to ask them: are there territorial issues with getting a franchise? I mean, would the Knicks and Nets have any say if there was a team in Connecticut? I know there's a certain radius because they had that problem in the Baltimore, Washington area, I think with the NBA. And so I don't know what the situation. And of course, there's the Boston, New England area.
Right.
So can Connecticut get a team? Would it be that simple or would it be complicated? Because you got the Boston Bruins on the other end,
Right.
too.
Well, we'll have them back on again. Like I said, I watched the show and they're very knowledgeable. But Jack, We got one of our favorite guests backstage right now. He's all over social media. He's got shows. He's got TikTok going on. He's got all kinds of stuff going on. Very good at what he does. We got Jamie Pags coming up with our Philly sports guy. Let me bring this back in tight. I had to go a little loose with the four people. How you doing today, Pags?
Good morning, guys. How are you guys?
We're doing great. We're doing great. You got to watch some of them two guys we had on the show. Pretty good. They look like they have a good little show going on there.
They do. I was listening before I came backstage too, just to kind of hear what they were going on. I like to try to catch up on what you guys are talking about before I come on the show. And it's interesting to listen to kind of what they got to say, especially from such a small market. I know that you live up there, Mac, but it's such a small market up there. And I was stationed up there, up in Groton, Connecticut, for a little while, so I do have a little bit of knowledge of that state, and it's a great little spot up there. Jack, to try to think about having a professional franchise up there. I mean, Hartford tried it and it didn't really work real well. And I mean, I was a big fan of the Hartford Whalers, but you could tell they didn't have the revenue to be able to come, and they couldn't pull from the Vermont and New Hampshire and those other states. So it makes it a little difficult.
I know boxing, they don't have major fights at Mohegan Sun and Foxwoods, but they have some decent shows over there that people turn out for. But you're talking about smaller crowds, with the casinos. But
yeah, that's what I would think. I think more pay-per-view would probably do really well in those spots in the Foxwoods and Mohegan Sun up there.
Yeah, because it kind of won the certain franchises like take the Islanders, okay? Or let's say the Devils move out of New Jersey. If they went to Connecticut, would they be able to you don't feel like it support a team, in other words?
No, I don't. In fact, my thought would be is that, like, for a team like the Devils, who do not get a tremendous amount of fans interaction with that team, to do even a 5 spot up in Hartford, just and do something like that would be something that would be worthwhile. At least it would be able to test the market to see if it's really worthwhile to try to even do something in there.
Let me just ask, is it the culture in Connecticut, or is it the population, the numbers? Do the numbers prohibit it? Or is it just the culture?
There's some small market teams that make it in small markets. Connecticut is so divided between New York and Boston. I mean, you grow up, you're a New York fan or you're a Boston fan, and to try to start a professional team, you would have to get loyalty to switch, and that's hard to do because it's so embedded here. Yeah. And like they were talking about the safety and the sports guy, Robert Kraft kind of teased Connecticut when Rowland was governor. I knew that they weren't coming here. I don't care what they said. Now, if a New York team or Boston team did uproot and come here, they might be able to make it. But that was just to tease Mass to make them build him a stadium. That's all that was, and that's all we're kind of good for up here. So let's get to some Philly stuff here, Pags. The Eagles lost a tough one, but it looks like, and this is a very small sample, but it looks like you might have a franchise quarterback who's starting right now, which leaves Wentz in a bad position. And the Eagles also, because of that big contract. What did you think of last game, Pags?
Well, I thought there was a few things I saw. The first quarter really showed a lot more than people are giving credit for. The fact that they started very slow, and you could tell that Hurts was a rookie in those first couple series. He did a number of things that really, set us back. The safety in the first, the second play of the game was really a big deal, and it came back to bite us later on. Obviously, we missing an extra point. You start to talk about leaving points on the field. That's a whole different scenario. But realistically, I felt that I don't feel like we're going to have a quarterback controversy. I feel like Hurts is a good quarterback for the way that this offensive line is and the way that this offense is right now. But I feel that Wentz being on the bench and watching what's going on is doing a couple things. One, it's firing him up. You know what I mean? It's getting him at, he's never been put on the bench before for something less than an injury. So this is something new to him, and this is where it's a big learning experience. You have to learn how to handle this type of adversity, and he's never had that before. And I feel like adversity makes somebody grow stronger. So although Hertz is doing very well right now, I think that when it comes back to next year and we start to get back into training camp, you're going to see the cream really start to rise to the top. And I think that everybody's allowed to have a bad year. And he had a very bad year, and he should have probably been put on the bench a couple of weeks before he was, and Hertz brought out. But because of no fans, I feel like that's sort of segregated the team, and they didn't get to hear the fans booing and things like that, because Philadelphia lets you hear it if you're not playing really well. So I feel like that as of right this moment, that Hertz is the quarterback for the 2020 Eagles. But the 2021 Eagles you're going to go into camp with competition, and competition, breeds excellence. And I feel like that's what's really going to stand pat moving into next year.
I think the thing is Wentz's contract. If he didn't have that contract and the Eagles could move on from him, I don't think there'd be competition in next training camp, because I don't think he would be there. I think the Eagles are stuck with him. It's a marriage that they have to endure. So I think that's all it comes down to. They're kind of married to one another. Wentz might want to go elsewhere, but the Eagles will take such a cap hit that they might be better off just keeping him, even if he's disgruntled.
Well, that's been a lot of the talk this week on Sports Talk Radio in Philadelphia. Whether could you take less and give up the money? You can give up the cap hit for another team taking on that cap hit and not having to give up as much. Would you give up Wentz and his entire contract and just get a third or fourth round pick in return? Me, no, absolutely not. No, I'm not of that ilk. I would take 2 first rounds plus for Wentz. Now,
You
is somebody going to
you
do
wouldn't
that?
come close to getting that.
You might
get a third rounder for Wentz at the most, 1 third round pick at most.
So when I think of Sam Bradford back in the Sam Bradford time, because he was the number 1 or number 2 pick in the draft back in the time when he went for his trade value was still sky high. And public opinion outside of Philadelphia is Wentz is a commodity. So there's going to be bidders for him. So to think that he's only going to get a third round pick, I think is very naive. And I feel that he's going to get a lot more. Or you could see the opposite way, where they're saying, okay, we'll give you a first and a third round for Hertz because he's shown that he could play quarterback.
Jamie,
I'm sorry.
I mean, not that I disagree with you. I think there's a way to get around this, and I'll tell you the truth. Me and Jack have heard about Wentz for a while now, about the way he is in the locker room and how he's kind of a me guy. They could take somewhat of a hit, maybe pay part of his contract for another team to maybe give him some real round picks, as you're talking. That contract is just too big to give up a first round for him. If the Eagles went ahead and said, okay, we'll pick up $10 million of his contract, then maybe so. Then maybe you got a deal there. But that contract is just a killer. And, Wentz, whether he does look great, he has looked great in the past at times. He's still really, since, Foles and before Foles, when the team was going to have success, he wasn't part of that as a starting quarterback. And I think that kind of plays on his mind a little bit. And this year, especially with all the problems the Eagles had besides Wentz, he really tried to do more than he should have. And I think he's just lost. And maybe he does come out the other end a better quarterback, or back to what they thought he would be. But you know something? There are quarterbacks that go through this and are never the same again. It's going to depend on how mentally tough this guy is.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's where I mentioned, I think a few weeks ago, where I felt that like sports psychologist would be, somebody who Wentz should kind of talk to in terms of being able to move forward and going along. I mean, I've heard a lot of different rumors that have come across, and since when there's tons of rumors swirling, I like to start some of my own. And the one place that I have not heard that my thought would be something of a great fit for Wentz would be the Minnesota Vikings. I tell you, up in Minnesota, they are very torn. Like when you start to get west of Minnesota, there's a huge fan base that's very torn because half of them love Wentz, but most of them love the Vikings. They grew up loving the Vikings, but they're big Wentz fans, so they became Eagles fans. And Minnesota is not. Kirk Cousins isn't the answer up there. It's been he's tried now and it's not done very well. And I've heard Denver, I've heard the Colts, I've heard all of those places. But imagine with some of the weapons like Thielen and Jefferson up there, and their running back and their running game, and then put Wentz on that team. They
Wentz
would
is a bit,
be
Jamie,
all
but
contenders.
Wentz at this point, wherever he would go, he's a bit of a project. It's too much of a risk to take him on and make him the starting quarterback. You have him come into camp, and it's just too much of a risk. Too
I
much.
disagree with
I
that
mean, and
100%.
yeah, and as far as Kirk Cousins goes, the Vikings have predominantly a running game. The offense wasn't geared around the strengths of Kirk Cousins this year. Denver, they've had their quarterback issues since Manning's retired. Wentz would be, it's just so chancy with Wentz. I mean, the best thing might be from just to remain with the Eagles, see how it plays out. We don't know with Jalen Hurts how good he's really going to be. I think he's going to be good. It's only been a couple of games. I
Right.
mean, he might just be so moving forward. And the worst that'll happen, Wentz is with the Eagles next year as a backup. And it's not a nice situation for him. But you mentioned a third round pick. It I didn't take it personal, the word naive. I didn't take it personal at all, believe me. But I was thinking immediately of other people in Wentz's spot. Jameis Winston, a starting quarterback for all those years. He was a pick six machine, but he was successful a lot of the time as well. He went to New Orleans for practically nothing. Marcus Mariota went to the Raiders for practically nothing. They were number one and number two in the draft the year they were drafted. Josh Rosen, he was gotten for nothing by Tampa Bay. Now for the 49ers, practically. These were elite guys too at certain points.
Well, and I hear that. However, I feel like that they had a lot more of a resume, and they were never as strong of a. What you're calling Wentz a project, and I disagree with that. I feel like that he is. I feel like 2020 has done a lot this year, and especially in Philadelphia, we are a "What have you done for me lately?" Society here, and it's the same thing with Fulgham. Like everybody had Fulgham being in the Hall of Fame a
Yeah.
few weeks ago, and now he's been non-existent except for like a couple of series at the end of the game yesterday on Sunday. So I'm not cut from that cloth. I am somebody who I want to be able to see longevity. I need to see actual, okay, let's see how you finish out this year. You work us out getting to the playoffs. And that's going to take a lot of help from Matt Rule and the Carolina Panthers to make that happen, and us being able to beat the Cowboys, who have all of a sudden found their offense again. So there's a lot of different things that could possibly happen. But if he shows a couple of more games where he is as dynamic as he was in the final three quarters of that of Sunday's game and the first game, then we could start to talk a little bit more, because now there's a little bit more body of work. But up until that point, I just can't trust everything that I'm seeing right now, because I feel like there's an energy and excitement that came back, but you also have, like, I'm very unhappy with Alshon Jeffrey. You could see the difference in his play because
Mhm.
Wentz isn't on the field, and that angers me. That tells me that you weren't playing 100% for your team when you didn't have the quarterback that you wanted. And I feel like that started to make a little bit of a cancer in the locker room, and that starts to filter down into other people's ears, and whether they want it, maybe subconsciously don't play to 100% of their ability. And then all of a sudden you get a new quarterback and everybody's all rejuvenated. I don't believe that. I feel like that's like, again, like a backup goalie going in and not letting up any more goals because the team in front of them started to play a little bit better. That's more because the coach got up on in them rather than
Yeah.
the goal making the difference.
Well, Pags, as you said, they're playing Dallas next week. Dallas found an offense because they played against a couple very bad teams. This is a winnable game for you guys. You guys are far from out of it. The Giants and the Washington still have some really tough games ahead of them. The Giants right now have no offense, and Washington the same way. They both have injured quarterbacks. It's a chance for you guys to make a move. I think you guys can beat the Cowboys. And then, whatever happens the last
I want to
game.
ask Pax, what's the biggest single story going on in Philly right now? Is it Wentz or James Harden? Or is Real Muto in the running?
Hey, Jack, let him finish answering my question first. Then we'll get to
Well, a combo.
Okay, I know you got excited.
So right now, it's Eagles. Eagles always are the number one story. Always the number one story. So it's always going to be the Wentz and Hurts conversation right now. Short of that, I think that we beat Dallas. I'm actually going to be at that game. So you'll probably see me or hear me because I'm usually loud. Although Dallas has got a number of fans in the stands, that's a little bit more than what every other stadium has. So they have like 35,000 people in the stands. So I'm going to be down there rooting on the Eagles, and we'll get to know already beforehand whether it's going to be for a potential playoff spot or not, because Dallas is fighting for that same spot too. They are also, like, both teams are in control of their own destiny, as long as, like, if we lose, obviously Washington could beat us in the final week of the season and take the East, where Dallas would have to hope that we actually decide to play against them if we lose on Sunday. But my expectation is that we will win on Sunday, and that they're going to flex that game and for the NFC East, and it's going to be Eagles, Washington, for the NFC East Sunday Night Football.
Okay, it's spoken like a true fan. 76ers, we're almost there. I think tonight they play, right?
They start tonight against the Wizards.
Yes. So Doc Rivers was on talking a little bit about maybe playing a small ball with moving Simmons to center. I mean, he's got a lot of ideas. So opening day, what are you looking for?
I feel like that they showed a lot in preseason, and I'm really excited to kind of watch this game tonight, just to kind of see how everything gels together. Preseason, everybody gets their moment, and everybody gets playing time and such like that. But there were times when they really gelled well, and I'm just excited to see a non-Brown coached team, because I like the idea that although he is a player's coach, he is going to he's going to be able to rile the troops, and that's something that hasn't been able to happen. So when they come out a little flat in the third quarter, that Doc is going to be able to get in and say, hey, we can't be doing this, and I'm not going to allow this to happen. And he'll be able to change that narrative some, where I don't think Brown was able to do that very well. And that's what's going to be really exciting. I expect really good things from the Sixers this year. My expectation is that we come out number 2 in the East, and that if everything goes well, I expect to be in the finals.
Oh, very good, very good.
You expect to beat out the Brooklyn Nets?
Yes.
I
think that the Brooklyn Nets are going to start off. They're going to be a lot of flash in the pan. That they're going to start off great, and then that they're going to trail off. It's just that there's a lot of different ego there.
Yeah.
And I think that ego ultimately, when you're winning, things are great. When you lose it, that's where it's going to start to turn. And every team has those ebbs and flows. That you don't win every game in the NBA. So, and once you start to lose a couple of games, it starts to come back at you. And that's
Well,
what's going to be
you're not only talking. You're not only talking about Brooklyn. You're talking about Milwaukee, who's a very, very strong team.
Yeah,
and the Celtics. I mean, the Celtics and Miami went to the finals. So, I mean, that's a bold prediction, and maybe it's true. Maybe it's not. It'll be fun to watch. I love Doc Rivers as a coach, and hopefully he can get the 76ers up and playing ball the way they should have been playing ball for the last couple of years.
maybe he'll do for them what he did for the LA Clippers.
At least
The Chris Paul, Blake Griffin era, and then the latest with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard.
yeah.
He's a good coach, though. Don't get me wrong. He's a good coach, but I don't think he's the savior that Philadelphia basketball fans might think he is.
Well,
I don't know. Guys named Doc in Philly seem to do really well.
Yeah. Doc that other Doc was better when he played for the Nets, but that's
he was good. He was good always, Jack. That's one.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I mean, so Pags, we're gonna let you go. We got a commercial. We got Lance Meadows coming up after the commercial, the famous broadcaster from the Giants. So we'll get a little Giants to go against your Eagles here, just to even things out. So great rivalry, and again, always a pleasure having you on. You got great insight on Philly sports, and we'll see you next week, Pags, and I'll be in touch off air as I always am.
All right, perfect. Thank you, guys,
Pags,
and you and your families have a very Merry Christmas.
You too, Pags. Have a great one. So there you go, the Philly sports guy, Jamie Pags. Wow, I mean, this show is just full today, Jack. It's going crazy. I mean,
good stuff. The Carson Wentz drama. We talk about it. At some point, it's going to have to be resolved. That's what it seems our main point is when we talk with Pags, whenever he's on the show. Carson Wentz. I mean,
right?
He's very, powerful sports personality amongst all, in Philadelphia. It would take James Harden coming over to displace him as the number one, sports personality in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to get James Harden, really, Jack. I don't think they need that headache, really. I mean, hopefully they're smart enough to stay away from that. I think Harden would be.
Well, their GM, the Sixers GM, is Daryl Morey, who had Harden at Houston. I don't know what his relationship is with Harden. He might love Harden, and he might be crazy enough to trade Ben Simmons in a deal. It would be a mistake, but it's possible, the Sixers would do that.
Oh, definitely. It's definitely possible. So, Jack, let's sneak out of here with a quick break. Back on the other side, guys, we got Lance Meadows, the famous broadcaster for the New York Giants. Knows more about the Giants than probably me and Jack put together. And it's always a pleasure having him on. So stick with us, folks. We'll be right back with Lance Meadows, and we'll see you in a few.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma.
I love you too. Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Now we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah, 0 tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt, that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's gonna be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he gonna know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're on live Wednesday through Sunday, 8 through 10 a.m. And I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, Jack Hirsch, legendary boxing writer and former president of the Boxing Writers
Association of America.
Thank you,
Never
Jack.
add an of America. Got to show that patriotism.
Yeah, we.
Yes. I'm glad we're on 8 to 10, Mac. 6 to 8 in the morning. I mean, I would really be, staggering out of bed, getting ready for the show. But 8 to 10, that's a great hours for our viewers. You can't get any better than that.
Yes,
they wake up in the morning, Mac. They have their coffee. They're watching us. It's good stuff.
Definitely. And to remind you or to tell you all, we will be on Christmas Day, folks.
Yeah.
So I know while you're opening up your presents or you're having your morning cup of coffee, there's games on Christmas this year. Tune us in because we'll be here with Byron Williams, our NFL analyst, and Keith Angle from TGI Sports Talk. They're nice enough to join us. So we're going to have a Christmas show. We'll be talking about Christmas trivia, games, our picks, the NFL, anything that anything has to do with sports and anything that has to do with Christmas. So join us for that Christmas show that morning. Jack, so far we've had an action-packed show. I mean, we had our new friends out there in Connecticut who have, they are doing some great things over there. Got a great show, very informative, very knowledgeable guys, and we were happy to have them on. And we'll be working to talk with them on again. And of course, the Philly sports guy. I mean, who knows more about Philly sports than him, Jack? Really?
Yeah, I mean, we've milked all we can about Carson Wentz out of him. Let's next time we have him on, let's limit the Carson Wentz talk. We know he's the Philly guy and the Eagle coach Doug Peterson. I mean, they're big Carson Wentz supporters.
Sure.
But Doug Peterson had to sit him down, eventually. Yeah. But he's still raving about Carson Wentz. So I think you're looking at a competition in next training camp. That would be my guess.
I definitely agree.
Hurts.
I mean, I would imagine Hurst is going to start against Dallas. I imagine he'll play well. I think he's really what the Eagles need, at least this year, because of the offensive line, his mobility, his throwing on the run, and his running style.
Matt, imagine this scenario. Jalen Hurts struggles against Dallas. Carson Wentz comes in, he throws the game-winning touchdown. Who starts the last game of the season then?
I know, right?
Talk about controversy. It might just get bigger.
It's very true, Jack, because a lot of teams in history, you can go back to the Cowboys with Staubach and Morton. A lot of teams have had controversies, and it really doesn't work out well for them in the end. I mean, you think about it, that, there's a saying that when you have two quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks because, when you're splitting time, it splits the locker room. It doesn't.
Right. Oh, Matt, come on. Whoever said that statement, I'm sure. Joe Montana, Steve Young, you have no quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean,
come on.
Listen, Jack, I'm saying that when Joe Montana was there, he was the starting quarterback, not Steve Young. That didn't happen. I think that you've got to have one starting quarterback because it divides the locker room. It makes the team lose confidence in your starter, and then you start playing a game inside the locker room that you don't need on the field, and that's why I'm saying that.
It depends the relationship the rest of the team has with the quarterbacks. If the quarterbacks get along and their teammates get along well with both of them, it can work.
It worked real well for Carson Wentz this year, Jack. Coming up
well, that's another issue. Okay.
Yes, another day. Right now we have the popular Lance Meadows, broadcaster for the Giants, busiest man in sports. He comes on with us once in a while. And we appreciate having his Giants knowledge and his knowledge on football. To be honest,
Mac and myself are just arguing, Lance. So I'm glad you came in at the perfect time.
I'll try to be the peacemaker here. Yes.
Thank you.
Well, I was going to ask you about Josh Rosen. I mean, I would have loved for the Giants to have picked him up. They could have gotten him for nothing, and he does have upside. And when someone like Troy Aikman says he hasn't even touched the surface on what he could accomplish, and Troy Aikman feels he could be an outstanding quarterback in the league, and he's certainly an authority. The Giants had nothing to lose, I think, with plucking him off the Tampa Bay practice squad.
Well, they certainly could have gone after him. There's no doubt about it. But I think right now between Daniel Jones, Colt McCoy, remember Joe Webb, they just put on the practice squad. There's another guy that's versatile and elusive as a quarterback, a Swiss Army knife. And they also have another young guy in Clayton Thorson. So I don't know if from an urgency standpoint, it was a necessity. The Niners right now are hurting at quarterback. Rosen could very well come in and start over the last few games. So I think the situations were a little bit different. And I think the last thing the Giants also want to do, not that bringing in Rosen, I think would necessarily create controversy, but to your point, he's a young quarterback, not that far removed from the draft. I don't think right now the last thing you want to be doing is bringing in somebody that could perhaps bring up a quarterback controversy term when it comes to Daniel Jones's future. So I don't think it was as big of a necessity as perhaps what the Niners are facing right now.
Great point. Let's talk about the Giants. And I'm going to go back 2 games with you. Against the Cardinals, it looked like Daniel Jones shouldn't even have been out on the field. He couldn't move. He couldn't really set and throw like he should have. I think that was a mistake playing him. He was basically a sitting target for the Cardinals, who really beat the Giants. I mean, they pretty much dominated the Giants that week. And then, he gets hurt again in practice. And now we got, here come the Browns. Colt McCoy is a decent quarterback. He's a very good backup. But it seemed to me, and, when you're down, especially in the beginning of the game by the goal line, and I know you want to play aggressive. I understand that because you want to win. I think it was a mistake not taking those points in the beginning of the game, Lance.
Well, here's this situation. You're going up against a Cleveland Browns team that was averaging over 40 points per game in each of the last 2 contests. They put up 42 points against a really good Baltimore Ravens team that you're actually now playing this week. I get both sides of the argument, but I think when you look at what this offense was doing over the previous 3 games, okay, keep in mind, they scored 19 against the Bengals, they scored 17 against the Seahawks, they scored 7 against the Cardinals. They wound up with 6 against the Browns. I don't care what caliber of a defense you're going up against. If you continue to score at that rate, you're not winning football games, period. So when he spoke to the media after the game, Joe Judge made it very clear, we're not winning games if we kick field goals. And I don't disagree with anything that was said. This team has to start punching it in. And they were actually improving, guys. If you noticed in the red zone efficiency, it was 13 of 18, 13 touchdowns in the last 18 red zone trips. The outlier was the Cleveland game where they had struggled. They were 0 for 3. So I think he looked at it and he said, hey, we've been very good within the red zone. We had come off a game in which we scored only 7. I can't just have Graham Gano constantly go out there, kick field goals, settle for 3 points. So
Yeah.
I really had no problem whatsoever in terms of the aggressive philosophy. Now, with that being said, where I think you could counter is if you're going to try to go for a touchdown or you're going to go for the first down, then keep your offensive personnel out there as opposed to the fake field goal. That I'll give you because I think the chances of Riley Dixon converting a pass to Nick Gates, your center, is probably very slim under those circumstances. So keep your offense out there. Remember, it was 4th and 5. They could have gotten the first down and then had a 1st and goal. They didn't necessarily have to go for the home run. So I understand the philosophy of, well, why not keep your offense out there? That I get it. But, the Goldman run, we're talking about a 4th and 1, 4th and 2, technically. It was a long 1 yard. You like your chances of picking up the 1 yard on the ground instead of going for the 3 points. And once again, they wound up with 6. And no matter how good this defense is, if this offense continues to score less than 10 points moving forward, they're not winning football games. You don't do that at a high rate when it comes to the National Football League.
Well, I agree with what you said there, and I understand wanting to get the touchdown and playing aggressive, but as Bill Parcells' philosophy was, take the points in the beginning of the game. If you think about it, Lance, you could add another 6 points to that score, and you go in at the halftime. It's 12-9 or 13-9 instead of 13-3. There's something to be said about momentum, and there's something to be said about being in the game at the end of the game, where maybe the players go 120 instead of 100%. And that's the only reason why. Again, I love aggressive play, but that's the only reason why I'm saying that, Lance. I mean, you want to put your team in a position to win at the end. And though we should be able to pick up 1 yard, I agree with that. And though fake plays are great every now and then, trick plays, I mean, it's the beginning of the game. It's not the end. It's not like you're trying to, kick a field goal in the third quarter. This is in the beginning of the game where momentum is very important, Lance.
Well, to your point, strategy and philosophy could change if it's a 13-9 game at the half. No disagreement there. I don't know how Cleveland's play calling then would change. Would they have the philosophy to lean on the run a little bit less because they can't pound the ball? They have to cushion their lead. Everything's possible. But let's take a step back. If you look at the majority of this game, the Cleveland running game did not hurt the Giants. The Giants actually held Nick Chubb to 50 yards, which is on the extremely low side compared to what he was doing statistically this season. Baker killed them. And he completed, we're talking about 84% of his passes. So he was the guy that was picking apart the Giants' defense. So I don't know how much the philosophy would change, to your point, if it's a 4-point game at the half. I still think Cleveland's going to come out in the second half. They're going to look to pass. They're going to look to throw over the middle. They're going to look to move the chains. The second thing is, if it's a 13-9 game and your defense is performing at the rate it was in the previous 3 games. Well, I'll take the Arizona game out. Arizona also was affected by field position. So let's talk about Cincinnati, Seattle. Your defense held the opposition to under 20 points. Right. In this Cleveland game, Cleveland put together 2 95-yard drives that resulted in touchdowns and a 75-yarder. So I think Joe Judge was banking on, my defense is going to perform the way it did against Cincinnati and Seattle. So if we're aggressive in terms of going for the touchdowns and we don't get them, we'll still have some more opportunities. Our defense is not going to give up those back-breaking plays. Well, what happened was he rolled the dice with that, and the defense didn't have as great of a performance as what happened in the previous games, and Cleveland, once again, was having success. So 13-9 game at the half, who's to say Cleveland doesn't continue to march down the field and your defense makes stops? We could argue it both ways. The bottom line is, whether it's early in the game or late in the game, you have to take your opportunities in the red zone and score, because there's no guarantee you're going to get back to the red zone later in the game. Who's to say that you're able to move the football? The Giants haven't proven that. So I agree with being aggressive, but I also agree with not necessarily settling for 3 points, because there's no guarantee you're even going to be in field goal range the rest of the game with the way they're performing from an offensive standpoint.
Lance, I agree with the philosophy of being aggressive, but you have to have the personnel for that. If let's say Saquon Barkley was playing this year, was completely healthy, that would change everything, because you could pass to him out of the backfield. I mean, it gives you so many extra options because the defense has to concentrate on him.
There's no doubt about it. But once again, I go back to they were 13 of 18 in the red zone without Saquon Barkley in the last few games. So that's 13 touchdowns and 18 red zone opportunities. They had been running the ball effectively without Saquon. Wayne Gallman, Alfred Morrison provided a nice 1-2 punch. So, yeah, Barkley gives you a little bit more versatility. There's no doubt about it. But we're talking about picking up 5 yards on that 4th and 5 play on the first possession in which they settled for a field goal. Whether Barkley's on the field or not, they have enough personnel to pick up 5 yards. My argument is keep your offensive personnel on the field instead of going for the fake field goal, because Colt McCoy executing a 5-yard pass or them having a 5-yard run is much higher than your punter throwing a pass to Nick Gates, your center. Okay, I think most people would agree with that. The second play that we talked about, guys, was once again, it's a long 1 yard that you have to pick up, whether it's Barkley, whether it's Goldman, whether it's Ahmad Bradshaw, whether it's Brandon Jacobs. Okay, I think most teams would say we like our chances executing in those circumstances. So to me, this wasn't about the play call wasn't right, the philosophy was off. It was the lack of execution. That's what it simply came down to.
Yeah, I agree, but I agree for the most part what you're saying, Lance. I mean, listen, you should be able to pick up 1 yard if you want to win the game. You know, we talked. I'm going to go back to the beginning again when I first started interviewing you. We were worried about the defense. I'll tell you, Lance.
I thought you were worried about me, actually, but that's okay. That's
the defense this year, Lance, I mean, take the Cardinals out, and they did hold the Cardinals to what could have been a really, really bad whooping. This defense is out of sight, Lance. I mean, the defensive line is probably, I would say, one of the best defensive lines in the league. Their defensive backfield is playing unbelievable. Of course, you know, Bradbury became an all-pro selection this year, had a great season. The defensive philosophy to me is taking all these big, high-powered offenses and keeping them in check. And that's something to be said about the defensive coaches this year, Lance.
100%. I think the defense has exceeded expectations no matter how this season finishes up. There's no doubt about it. When you talked to me before the season started, and everybody was asking about the defense, that to me, I thought was going to be the element that the offense had to overcome, because I thought they were going to be in, much more shootouts, but the defense has held its own, has done very good, has been consistent to your point. Yeah. They've had some semblance of a pass rush, but remember, they don't have an elite pass rusher. They don't have Batman. They have a bunch of Robins, but the bunch of Robins schematically have gotten the job done. To your point, I think Patrick Graham and this staff has done a really good job developing the young nucleus and coaching these guys up. But it's still putting a lot of pressure on that unit, which goes back to what we were just talking about against Cleveland. Your defense gives up 20 points. Most teams would say, hey, we give up 20 points. We like our chances of being in the game, number one. We like our chances of winning the game, number two. And then your offense goes out and scores 6 points. You hold the Arizona Cardinals, as you mentioned, to 26 points. Now, you're right. All in all, that wasn't bad because Arizona had 12 possessions, guys. 5 of the 12 possessions, they started at the 50-yard line or better, okay? They did not put the defense in any good of a position. And the Giants' defense, for the most part, kept Arizona in check. Arizona did score 26 points, not to take anything away from them. Murray and the Cardinals' offense had success, but still, under those circumstances, you hold the opposition to 26 points. You say, okay, if we can get some reasonable offensive production, we like our chances staying in that game. And what happened to the last 2 games? The offense scored 13 total points. So that's why I go back to, I don't mind the aggressiveness. Your offense has 13 total points in the last few games. Absolutely. You better score touchdowns when you get in the red zone. Field goal is not going to do anything. But yes, the defense has afforded them, I think, to be in a lot more games than perhaps they anticipated. James Bradbury, Blake Martinez, Logan Ryan have been 3 really good additions in free agency. I think some of the young guys have shown flashes because they have gotten opportunities, such as the Carter Coughlins, the Cam Browns, whether it be on special teams, whether it be on defense. So all in all, yes, this defense has shown some promise. Is there improvement needed? Absolutely. But you like the nucleus that they're building, and you hope that the more reps these guys can get under their belt, they can build off of that moving forward, not just the next 2 games, but also obviously into the offseason as well as next season.
Mac mentioned the Pro Bowl. First off, I don't think Pro Bowl selection should be announced until the end of the season, especially a season like this where they're not playing the game. I can understand if they have to play the game, they have to announce it before the season's over. How on earth did Evan Ingram make it to the Pro Bowl? I mean, I know, Lance, you're not going to say anything negative about that. You're going to be diplomatic. The guy cost the Giants one game this year already. And NFL games, that at a premium, and he cost them a game directly.
Well, listen, Evan Engram was a surprise to make the Pro Bowl. There's no doubt about it. I think it says a lot about the NFC landscape of tight ends. I think it's more of a reflection of that, guys, than it necessarily is, Evan in the eyes of the rest of the NFL. Because think about this. George Kittle gets hurt. If Kittle doesn't get hurt with the Niners, he's probably the second individual who's making the Pro Bowl. TJ Hawkinson was number one. He's the starter who's had a really good season. Remember, it's per conference. It's not the whole league. Darren Waller and Travis Kelce play in the AFC. If it was all the tight ends and they just took the four best guys, then I don't know if Evan does make the team. But here's what it is an example of. The way that the league looks at Evan Engram is different than the way you look at him and the way the fan base looks at him, because they're evaluating him based on the philosophy of when they have to game plan for the Giants, and I think there's validity behind this. He is a nightmare matchup because of his ability to run routes and almost play as a wide receiver. Now, whether or not the execution meets that, that's a whole other story. But statistically, actually, if you look at Evan's season this year, number one, he's in line to play 16 games for the first time in his career. That's actually a big bright spot, guys, because if you remember, he's been plagued by injuries.
Yeah.
We've got to have perspective here is my point. Okay, nobody's crowning him. Nobody's telling you he's had an extraordinary season and he's the best tight end in the NFL. But within his career arc, it actually does say something about him being able to play all 16 games. Number two, if you look at his receptions and his receiving yards, he's up there based on his rookie year in 2017, which statistically was his best season. If you just take a glance at the numbers, within the comparison of his career, he's actually having a very productive year.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, so I can't give a big argument on this, but I believe he's somewhere in the 6th to 7th range amongst tight ends, which is very good, which is surprisingly good for him, but that's still a little short of the Pro Bowl.
Well, and once again, I'm not disagreeing with you, but once again, you'd have to make an argument to me. Who are the other caliber tight ends in the NFC right now that deserve to get in? Robert Tonyan of the Green Bay Packers had 10 touchdowns. Evan Ingram has 1. So he beats him in that statistical category. And Tonyan, I would make an argument for. Outside of him, once again, a lot of guys went down with injuries. George Kittle would have been the number one guy. Hawkinson made the Pro Bowl. He's deserving. It's really tough pickings in terms of the rest of the NFC. So I think by default, Evan was the guy that was pretty much next in line to make it. And remember, it's also a popularity contest, guys. Definitely. Fan vote influences the Pro Bowl. And I'm not saying that Giants fans went out to the ballot and were stuffing it with Evan Engram, okay? That's not what I'm arguing. But it is a popularity contest. In an ideal world, I would have the coaches, I would have the players, I would have the executives vote on the Pro Bowl. No disrespect to the fans. It's the same thing with the NBA All-Star game. How do you think guys who are hurt get to be starters in the All-Star game? It's because fans go out and vote. Eliminate the fan voting. I think that would balance things out a little bit more.
Definitely agree. Hey, Lance, next game, not next week, we're getting right on it. The Baltimore Ravens. Of course, Jackson can run with the ball. I have faith in the Giants defense that will keep the running game in check against the Ravens. Of course, they're going to be, they're going to game plan for Jackson. He can make plays with his legs when he's going to run and he stops and throws the ball. So the defensive backfield can't bite on it too much. They got to keep that deep coverage, at least at safeties. What do you think the Giants' defense will be? Do you think it's going to be a definite zone? Make him throw the ball, accurately within that zone and kind of wait for the run, or do you think they blitz him and bring pressure to try to get him a little nervous, or is that a big mistake?
Well, it's a pick your poison with respect to bringing pressure to Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, as you alluded to, he's 12th in the NFL in rushing yards. That's all positions, guys, okay? That's running backs included. That's how effective he's been. We're talking about a guy in back-to-back years that has run for over 800 yards. So if you bring pressure, Lamar Jackson has the ability to escape. So then you better have somebody filling in the gaps to then prevent Lamar from running for 10 yards. So I think you got to be very careful in terms of how much pressure you bring against the Baltimore Ravens. I agree with you, Mac. I think you have to stop the run when you're playing Baltimore. There's no doubt about it. But unlike Cleveland, Baker is not as big of a threat to run. Lamar is much more of a threat to run. Baker's going to move the pocket. He's going to extend the pocket. He's going to look to buy time. Lamar will do that, but then Lamar will take off. Baker will not do that. It's more of a Kyler Murray type of game where you have to account for Murray running for a first down than maybe the Cleveland matchup. James Bradbury does return. So maybe they don't have to play nearly as much zone because you feel good about putting Bradbury on his side. But here's the other thing. When you look at the Ravens passing game, you have Hollywood Brown, who is coming into his own late in the season. You have Mark Andrews, the tight end. They don't have a plethora of weapons. So this is a game where I want Lamar to throw 35 to 40 times. I want to see him have to win this game with his arm. I do not want to see him and the Ravens win this game by running for 200 yards, which they're more than capable of doing it. So I think the Giants need to sell out, and they need to do everything in their power to stop the run and say, hey, if we lose this game, we're going to lose this game because Lamar Jackson is going to have to throw for 200 some odd yards and 3 touchdowns. We're not losing this game because they ran for 250. Because remember, we're not just talking about Lamar Jackson. We're talking about J.K. Dobbins and we're talking about Gus Edwards. It is a 3-headed monster when you play the Baltimore Ravens. The Giants have been good against the run. That's the positive. They've only allowed one 100-yard rusher. That was Benny Snell, the Steelers' backup running back, all the way back in week 1. So statistically and with the eye test, they've been solid. But Arizona did have success on the ground with Kyler Murray. He didn't have huge numbers, but if you notice, he picked up critical first downs. He got big critical chunks of yardage. So it's not so much the numbers when this Ravens game ends. It's about situational football. And can they keep Lamar Jackson in check? But I want Lamar throwing the ball. That's how you try to make the Ravens.
Would you rush 3 men and just contain the run? Just rush 3 men, which is very unorthodox, to do that throughout the game.
Well, you could certainly choose to do that. Listen, you have to still try to manufacture some pressure because the whole point is if you want Lamar to win this game with the pass, you don't want him to necessarily have 7 years to throw the football.
Yeah.
You want to be able to apply some pressure. So I think that you can rush 4 under these circumstances and pick opportunities to blitz with maybe a secondary member here or there, because I don't think you're worried about Baltimore killing you with the 30, 40-yard bombs. But once again, you also need to account for, do we have a spy on Lamar Jackson? Do we have somebody that maybe doesn't rush, but also has eyes on the quarterback? So then when he takes off, you have somebody that can once again fill the voids and fill the holes. That I think probably is more manageable than just sitting back and rushing 3, because I want to go back to something we were talking about earlier. Not only did Cleveland have success in the passing game, Baker Mayfield was very comfortable. Well, why was he comfortable, guys? Because the Giants recorded 1 quarterback hit. That was it. Dexter Lawrence had 1 sack and 1 quarterback hit.
Yeah.
End of story. You leave any quarterback that comfortable, he's going to have success. So they can't duplicate that performance. They have to get some pressure on Lamar Jackson. You can't bring the house, because you bring the house, he's going to make you come back to realize that was not a very good decision.
Before we let you go, Lance, let's talk about the offense for a little bit. What is your opinion on the game plan? I mean, Cleveland ran on Baltimore. The Giants have a better running game than they did in the beginning. I don't know if Daniel Jones is playing this week or if it's Colt McCoy. If Daniel Jones is there, let's not just start throwing every play like they tried against the Cardinals. Let's try to establish the running game and then use play action pass, which Colt McCoy is good at, and I think Dan Jones is good at too. What frustrates me is when Dan Jones came in St. Louis, we decided we're going to throw the ball all over the place and not establish a running game and keep Kyler Murray off the field. And I believe if we get down to the Ravens and we don't score some points right away, it's going to be a long day.
100%. But it'll be a long day no matter who they go up against, because as you were hitting on with the previous game, see, the reason why they abandoned the run in the Arizona game, there's 2 things. Number one, when this team is down, they abandon the run because they got to play catch up. I mean, that's just football 101. Number 2, Mac, if you noticed in the Arizona game, they only ran 49 plays.
Right.
They ran 49 plays, and I believe they ran the ball for about half of that. So from the mathematical standpoint, the ratio wasn't off. The problem was they didn't have a lot of at-bats. Well, why didn't they have a lot of at-bats? Because you didn't sustain long drives, and Arizona had great field position, was able to maximize the clock. That was the big reason why things got so out of hand against Arizona. Cleveland You're down in the second half. Once again, Colt McCoy's got to throw. So, yeah, they got to stay in this game early to be able to stick with the run. And they're built to play with an early lead so that they can continue to pound the football. That's what worked against Seattle and Cincinnati. This is not a team built, whether Daniel Jones is the quarterback or Colt McCoy, to play from behind by double digits and try to win the game throwing the ball 30 times. It's real simple. So they have to be able to come out early. They have to be able to manufacture points, specifically touchdowns, and they have to be able to stay within contention with Baltimore. Because if they don't do that, the Ravens could put together lengthy drives by running the football, milking time of possession, and then all of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, Giants are down by a touchdown or two. And yeah, whether it's Colt McCoy or Daniel Jones, they're going to have to consistently throw. And that's how you get out of whack and you don't have a balanced offense. And if they do that again, yeah, I do not like their chances of keeping this game in a competitive realm and also walking away with the W. It's real simple for the Giants. You got to play balanced football and you have to pound the football. And you've got to run the football about 30 some odd times. It's no coincidence, guys, okay? During the 4-game winning streak, they had over 100 rushing yards in each game, but this was more indicative of what happened. They ran the ball over 30 times in each of those games. What's happened in the last 2 losses? The carries now have dipped to 20 or less. Okay, that is a big differential, and that's a number to watch on Sunday. If they are within the 20s, that's probably going to mean that's a very rough chance of walking away with a W on Sunday.
Lance, Joe Judge, okay, he's a first-year coach. First-year coaches are going to make mistakes. He's growing on the job. And on balance, I think the Giant fans are happy with him to this point, as they should be. But I think the one area where he hasn't had an impact, where he can be criticized a little, is special teams. Special teams hasn't made a difference for the Giants in a positive way.
Well, there's no doubt about it. I think that's been the Achilles heel over the last few games. I would say specifically the coverage units. I know people are going to point to Dion Lewis having a pair of fumbles on returns in each of the last 2 weeks. They recovered, of course, the one against Cleveland. The first one against Arizona was one of those fluky plays, guys, where a defender's leg kicks the ball. I mean, how many times do you really see that? Once again, ball security is still important. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know necessarily if that's as big of an issue as maybe we're making it out to be. The coverage units, yes, has been a problem in terms of field position. The Cincinnati game, you had Brandon Wilson return a kickoff 103 yards. Alex Erickson had a great return on the punt. Remember, if Jabal Shear doesn't get the strip sack, we're talking about that Bengals being a loss and not a win. People forget about that. That's the fine line the Giants have walked this season, okay? It's been the chinny chin chin in terms of walking away with W's. Let's not lose sight of that. Now, is that on coaching or is that the lack of execution? Well, here's the thing. They've been playing a game of musical chairs, guys, with the personnel they're utilizing on special teams because of injuries, because of a lot of the young players that they're relying on. Now, I'm not saying that's an excuse, but when you move personnel in and out, think about this. Because of injuries, they took guys on special teams, they moved them to defense. Think about the snaps that Cam Brown and Carter Coughlin are now playing, or how much they're relying on them on defense when early in the season, those were mainstays on special teams. So when you're moving personnel around, now you're calling on guys in other games who did not get maybe as many special team snaps, who were coming off the practice squad. I'm not saying this is the main reason, but I think this is a contributing factor. What's happening is the main core of special teamers is not consistent one week to another. And with so many notable different names, new faces who have not had a lot of reps together, sometimes that could lead to communication breakdowns, and that can lead to execution breakdowns. I'm not saying, once again, that's the number one reason, but I would point to that as being one of the factors in why maybe they're having some issues in terms of coverage. I think it got a bit better against Cleveland compared to where it was in the previous 2 games. But here's the thing, and this is where your point is well taken. When your offense is struggling and has scored 13 points in the last 2 games, when your defense is walking that very fine line where even 20 points giving up is not good enough, the last thing you can afford to do is give up field position, no matter who you're playing, because most NFL teams are going to say, we can move the ball 45 to 50 yards and we can get into scoring position. Hell, if you start at midfield, all you really need is 20 more yards to get into field goal range. Right, so that has to be cleaned up. But to say that it's specifically coaching, I would have to be in the meetings, guys, and see what's going on. If you've watched Joe Judge, and more often than not every week he breaks down in the coach's report some special teams plays, and he's breaking this down with so many details that I find it hard to believe that they're not emphasizing that during the week. This to me comes down to
Well, he's a special team. He came to the Giants as a
Absolutely.
special teams coach of the Patriots. Is it possible he's just trying a little too hard, Joe Judge? You know, maybe mixing things up in a way that because it's his baby, special teams.
Well, here's the other thing. I mean, let's not lose sight of Thomas McGahee is the special teams coordinator, guys.
Yeah.
And Thomas McGahee's been with the Giants for the last few years. Thomas McGahee has been here when the Giants had one of the best special teams units in the NFL, and that unit has come a long way. I mean, I could go back 5 or 6 yards where special teams was a nightmare for this franchise. Over the last few years, it's actually been the strength. So McGahee's involved in special teams as much as Joe Judge, and he also has been a very good coach. So I don't think it's them trying too hard. I don't think they're trying to come up with these creative schemes to make up to what you alluded to, the offensive struggles. I think it comes down to the lack of execution. And if you go back and you watch those plays, and I do, they're not running any trickery. It's a matter of guys getting off their blocks, shedding tackles, and winning the battle at the point of attack. Cam Brown, for example, made a heck of a tackle on Alex Erickson on that last punt return for the Bengals. He doesn't trip him up. If he doesn't make an extra effort play, the Bengals are winning that football game. And it's not even up for debate. So, you're seeing the effort, you're just not seeing the execution on a consistent basis.
Lance, the execution, of course, is very important. That's why a lot of special teams use their starters in special teams is a very important part of the game. And again, Lance, thank you for coming on and joining us. It's always a pleasure having you on. And hopefully next time we talk, we're talking about the Giants winning the NFC East. So,
I should have asked him. I don't know whether we have time. As a Jet fan who roots for the Giants too, but I'm a Jet fan. Should I be happy? Should I have been happy over what happened on Sunday?
Well, the way I look at it is the players and the coaches, they're not playing to tank, regardless of what
the fans, me, should I be happy?
Well, yeah. I mean, the fans obviously can be frustrated, but here's what I will say. Do we know for a fact that Sam Darnold still doesn't have any upside and potential? I don't understand why you're so quick to throw Sam Darnold to the wayside. That's what I don't understand. To me, it's a matter of why don't you build around Sam Darnold, give him some more help, build up the offensive line, and who knows how things play out. Could be the silver lining.
Lance, not one great player makes a great team. So
absolutely.
Thanks again for coming on, Lance. We'll be in touch
Thanks,
again. At the end of the season, I want to talk to you again at least. You're always a pleasure to have on. So much knowledge about the Giants. Such a great broadcaster. Thank you again for joining us.
Well, I appreciate
Happy holidays.
It. Always good talking with you. Happy holidays to you. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. So there you go. The great Lance Meadows again, Jack, blessing us with his knowledge on the Giants. There's nobody that knows more about it.
And let me tell you something. The Giants have played 14 games. And to most people, they're cooked. They're not going to make the playoffs. They're out of it now. I just want to remind them when the Giants won their last Super Bowl, they were 7-7, and people thought they were out of it. No way, they're not making the playoffs. They won their last two, somehow snuck into the playoffs and won the Super Bowl. I mean, you can never tell. You can never tell.
Definitely. So, Jack, this is day of the show where we go ahead and we acknowledge a great player. Yes, sir. On the Wall of Fame at the MacandJackSports.com on our website, we have our first selection in basketball, the great Bill Russell, 11-time NBA champion, 12-time All-Star, 4-time rebounding champion, 2-time NCAA champ. His shot blocking, rebounding, and defense dominated the NBA 6 times, over 1,000 rebounds consecutive years. And, of course, the first black coach in America's sports, Jack.
He was a player coach for the Boston Celtics when he took over for Red Auerbach, and they won the NBA title. That was Wilkes. Right. That was his last year, and then he retired. He didn't elect to continue as coach of the Celtics after he retired as a player coach, but he did come back to coach the Seattle Supersonics. and they made a 10-game improvement during the regular season. So he was a good coach, but he was remembered as a player, one of the all-time greats. And when you think of Bill Russell, you think of the ultimate winner, and very worthy selection by us, Mac, to put him on our Wall of Fame.
Yeah, the first NBA legend to go on our Wall of Fame. And folks, like I said, if you just go to macandjacksports.com, our website, we have the Wall of Fame over there, and you can check out our latest inductees and our past inductees, if you would say that. We're going to take our last official timeout for today, Jack, and we'll be back on the other side. We'll go through some standings. We'll go through some other, maybe get to this day in sports. But, man, what a busy show today, Jack. It's been a lot of fun. So, folks, stick with us. We got a little bit more to give you. So stick with us, and we'll be right back.
If you served honorably in the nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again.
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
He's off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah, zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt, that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's gonna be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he gonna know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it though, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Try.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. I'm going to go ahead and bring us back up because I miss not seeing Jack's face while I'm on the show. As you all can see, he's a very handsome man. I'm Mac, your host, with
I know.
your co-host. Jack Hirsch. I had him speechless. That's the first time
I remember the way I looked years ago, so I'm nodding. I mean,
I think you're better.
My own mind. Yeah.
I think you're better looking now than you were years ago, Jack. I have some old pictures of you, and I think that you're.
If you want to prorate it, okay.
If you want to prorate it. So, Jack,
Yeah.
let's take care of a little business before we get to our standings breakdown. On our website, macandjacksports.com, you have links to the Fanatics that have all your team's gear, all their jerseys, hats, everything. Click on that, bring you right to the store with some great deals. We have bstbreaks.com, who also sponsors the show. Folks, they have a lot of sports cards, signed jerseys. They have a big giveaway at the end of January where you can win a lot of free stuff. If you use MacJack code on there, MACJACK, they'll give you $10 off your purchase off their already low prices, Jack. So two great sponsors we have. Support them, guys, and it helps support the show. So we always like to do the NFL standings every Wednesday to get us caught back up on some of the things happen, Jack. We'll do some of that before we get to this day in sports history, another one of my favorite segments. So, Jack, in the AFC East, the Buffalo Bills are the division champions at 11-3. Dolphins are still in a playoff position. I think they're in the last position right now, just ahead of the Ravens. The Pats are out of the playoffs at 6-8. First time that they haven't won a division in decades. The Jets get their first win, Jack, against your Super Bowl pick, the Rams.
I don't know what to make out of the Rams. I mean, that shook me up. Not just the Jets winning the game, but to beat the Rams. And I thought the Rams had the best balanced team in the NFC. But if they're going to lose to the Jets, and no disrespect to the Jets, who really played hard, but to see them get blown out the way they did the week before against Seattle and be non-competitive in a lot of other games and actually beat the Rams in a meaningful game for the Rams, I mean, it's what do you make out?
It's very confusing.
Say about the Rams, can I still keep them as my Super Bowl selection in the NFC, or do I have to look elsewhere towards, let's say, the Green Bay Packers? I just don't know. I still haven't gotten over Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, being a Jets fan, I know there's a little controversy about getting Trevor Lawrence or not with the first pick. But listen, if I'm rooting for my team the way I am, I want them to win every time they go on the field. That's just me.
Let me tell you what'll be interesting. If Justin Fields lights it up against Clemson in the playoffs, he's really outstanding. They win the game, and then he plays a terrific game in the final, the championship game. That's going to change the equation a bit with him and Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence still probably goes number one on any circumstance, but all of a sudden the two of them are closely matched together. Like Lance Meadows said with Sam Darnold, he doesn't want to give up on Sam Darnold. I'm not saying I'm giving up on Sam Darnold, not at all, but this is his third season. And for whatever reason, he hasn't blossomed. For whatever reason, it might not be his fault, but then maybe it is his fault. How long you wait on a guy? Look how Jacksonville waited years on Blake Bortles.
Yeah.
Okay, and you have to make a decisive decision one way or the other. Either you keep Sam Darnold or you move on from him. If you can get a quarterback you feel could be an adequate replacement.
Yeah, Jack,
I should say.
I think the biggest thing the Jets got to do is get a real head coach in there that's organized, that knows how to put it together a staff and have some kind of plan. And I don't think they have that right now. And, I don't think it's Sam Darnold's fault. I don't think it's, the running back's fault. I think, the organization, as we know, the winning organizations in football have great, at least very good head coaches, and Sam Gase hasn't been good anywhere he's been. So, except when he was the offensive coordinator for
Denver, and had Peyton Manning.
The Chiefs in the AFC West are still the number one seed. They're at 13-1. The falling Raiders are at 7-7. Denver and the Chargers especially playing good ball. They're tied in last at 5-9. Jack, the Chiefs. I mean, that's just It's a powerhouse. Going to be hard to beat this year for sure.
Well, they have the bullseye on their head, but they're still going to have to win a couple of games, and they still have to secure the bye, meaning they don't play game one of the playoffs this year. Instead of two teams having a bye, only one team is going to have a bye. So getting that top spot's important, and Chiefs are going to be tough to beat, and we'll see. Like I said, in the NFL, all the elite teams can beat one another in the playoffs on a given day. They go on a certain run. And I'm not big on momentum in the long term, but in the short term, if a team's playing really well going into the playoffs, yeah, they can reel off, 3-4 wins in a row and win it all.
Yeah, I mean, listen, speaking of runs, the Steelers, they've lost their mojo, Jack. That's the only way I can describe it. I mean, they're not the physical team that we're used to. Ben Roethlisberger is trying to throw the ball all over the field, and it's not being successful. The Bengals beat them. They're at 11-3, and the Browns stay in second. And now the Steelers are kind of looking over their shoulder at the Browns and the Ravens, who have put together a nice little winning streak. And then, of course, you've got Cincinnati, who just upset the Steelers. Go ahead.
Just a word about what the league should do with Juju Schuster. They should enact a new rule. No opposing player should be allowed to dance or do anything with the other team's logo. That should be a rule. If you do that, you jump on the logo, whatever, that logo should be treated as a shrine. So if you break that rule, then we should have a new rule. You should be suspended a game.
Wow,
that's plain and simple. Because once you stomp on the opposing team's logo, you're inciting a riot, basically. You're ticking off the home team, and then they start fighting, and then things get out of hand.
You know what I think, Jack? I do agree with you to a point. I think a one-game suspension is a little much, but they should at least, on the first possession the other team gets, or your position, penalize them 15 yards for unsportsmanlike conduct. Can you imagine returning the ball to the 40 and getting the ball on the other side?
That's a weak penalty. I mean, come on. I mean,
listen, Jack, you can't stop. You can't stop somebody from dancing on the floor.
Someone's house of worship, doing something disrespectful, and being given a $50 fine in the mail.
Yeah, well, I mean, are you okay, Jack? Okay, Jack. Then you're not going to arrest. So then you're not going to arrest the guy after you dance on his lawn. The police aren't going to arrest him for coming out and hitting him.
Make it a rule that they know they're not supposed to do it. Then if they do it anyway, then they get suspended. It's that simple.
They
get suspended for one game. So they will know you keep off that logo. You don't do anything at the logo or around it because you're inciting a riot.
Oh, Jack,
Players could have gotten hurt during that game the way they were at it extra hard.
Jack. Oh, my God. Didn't get hurt anyway, Jack.
Mike Tomlin, at least to his credit, says he's going to talk to him about it, that it's not necessary. You shouldn't be doing things like that.
Yeah, I'm glad you're not running the NFL, Jack. The Titans and the Colts are tied at 10-4.
Yeah, you're happy with Roger Goodell. Okay, I like Roger.
The Texans with a tough loss. That was my underdog pick. They were down there in the end zone and couldn't make it happen. They had a tough loss. They're at 4-10. And the Jags are currently with the first-round draft pick at 1-13.
Deshaun Watson, and, he got fined. Some of the Texan players got fined. Deshaun Watson supposedly is a part owner in a restaurant. He claims he's a minority owner. He had the guys come down to the restaurant and he said, when we were practicing social distancing, face masks. I heard a photo said otherwise, but you know better. Deshaun Watson, a good guy, a great leader. You don't do that. You don't have them all come down to the restaurant in season. At least it's a little better than what Dwayne Haskins did. I mean, he goes to a strip club and he pays for the thing with the strippers and he's maskless. And then he apologizes to his players. Come on, these guys have to know better.
Yeah,
they have to know better. I understand that they're young. They feel a need to get out and so on.
Yes.
But they got to know better. At least Dwayne Haskins especially.
Yes, they had a strip
Sean
club.
Watson has proved himself already to be a great leader, has a great contract. But come on, with Dwayne Haskins, come
Yeah,
on,
yeah.
have to know
Yeah.
better, man. Come on.
You're right. Okay. In the NFC East, Washington is still in first at 6-8. The Giants and Dallas are tied at 5-5, and the Philadelphia Eagles with that tough loss are at 4-9-1. Jack, the division's still open. Alex Smith I don't know if he's playing this week or not. I don't know if Daniel Jones is playing this week or not. It looks like Philly has a controversy, and Dallas has caught back up in the last 2 games. So that division still anybody can win it, Jack.
Yeah, the Eagle-Cowboy loser gets mathematically eliminated,
Right.
I'm sure, knowing the numbers. And even a winner might get eliminated if the Redskins win, because the Redskins have beaten the Cowboys twice in head-to-head competition, if I'm not mistaken. So they would get the tiebreak, and considering they would go into the final season at least 1 game ahead of them, then they couldn't lose. They couldn't possibly win the division. The Cowboys, you never know. Everything, the dice has to fall exactly right for the Eagles and the Cowboys and even the Giants at this point to have a shot. It's amazing. They showed the percentage of teams, their chances of making the playoffs. The Redskins have a 73% chance of winning the division, and they have a losing record, and teams with a much better record in other divisions have less of a percentage chance.
Yeah, that's just the way it's set up, Jack. And I do agree with it for the most part. Seattle in the NFC West is at 10-4. The Rams with that loss to the Jets are at 9-5. The Cards are 8-6 with that win over Philadelphia. The 49ers sit at 5-9. Do you think there's anything to that Super Bowl runner-up curse, Jack, where the runner-up, besides the Buffalo Bills, who went to 4 consecutive Super Bowls being a runner-up, but it seems like teams that go to the Super Bowl and lose end up having a bad season in the next year, Jack?
I believe there's something to it. Let's make believe a moment, Mac. With something like 7 minutes to go, the Niners had, I think a 10-point lead, 7-8 minutes to go over the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And then the Chiefs went on a tear and won it. Let's say the Niners held on and won the Super Bowl, okay? And they were all celebrating in the end zone their defense like they had.
Right.
And they went into this year, they'd have a certain mojo about them, a certain attitude, a certain belief that they're Super Bowl champs. And when you're Super Bowl champs, every game you show up for, basically, because you have that title as Super Bowl champion until the next Super Bowl is played. I got to believe their record would be better. Some way, somehow, no evidence behind it, just a belief they would be, instead of 5-9, 7-7, let's say.
Yeah, even with the injuries, Jack, even with those injuries,
Yeah.
I think they would at least be 500. In the NFC North, Jack, Green Bay currently is at the top seed at 13-3. The Bears are still alive, beating Minnesota, who are now 6-8, followed by the Lions. I guess the Bears are starting to turn it around, Jack.
7-7, so the year's not a disaster for the Bears. Mitch Trubisky's playing better. He's going to play the next couple of games, and if he plays really well the next couple of games, guess what? They go to training camp. Mitch Trubisky's their quarterback.
Yeah.
Okay, and not that long ago, his situation seems similar to Carson Wentz's, but Trubisky is turning it around. Let's see how he does the next couple of games. And if the Bears go 8-8 this year, they're 7-7. Now it's not such a bad season if you want to look at it that way.
Very true, and may save Matt Nagy his job. Who
I don't feel he's on the hot seat the way
I don't know, Jack. I don't know
what happens.
I think the guy he sat down on the bench may end up saving his job. In the NFC South, the Saints are in first at 10-4. The Bucks in the playoff picture. They got one of the seeds at least, because they're only 1 game behind the Saints. And, who knows what happens there, but they're definitely in the playoff picture. Atlanta and Carolina are at 4-10. Atlanta, I don't know, Jack. It seems every time they get ahead of a team that Brady's the quarterback of in the first half, they end up losing the game. Very, very strange.
Yeah, Raheem Morris, since he took over as the interim coach, has gone 4-5. Is he going to be considered their full-time head coaching position. I don't know, but Atlanta, they have the weapons certainly on offense, and it just hasn't really worked out for them. Ito Smith actually has replaced Todd Gurley as their featured running back.
Yeah.
So they're still maneuvering in Atlanta, but there's talent there. But those early season losses, they never recovered from when they started 0-4.
Let's get to this day in sports history. Quick, Jack. We got about 5 minutes left in our show. 1953, second baseman for the Dodgers wins the National League Rookie of the Year. The name, Jack, I didn't put down. Do you remember who the name of that second baseman
Well,
was?
Jackie Robinson moved around. I mean, he
Right.
played second base a lot. They moved Jackie Robinson to first base, but he
I
was
think it was-
predominantly.
I think it was Gillum, Jack. I think Gillum was his last
Junior
name.
Gilliam.
Thank you.
Junior
There you go.
Gilliam, I think a more Junior Gilliam is more like a he came in the 50s, but I
Right.
think,
Yeah,
that's
he was
why
the rookie
Junior
of the year
Gilliam,
that year.
who was with the Dodgers a lot of
Yeah.
years.
Yes. The Immaculate Reception in 1972. Franco Harris was running downfield after he made a block. He just tried to get open to be an outlet pass for Terry Bradshaw. The receiver gets creamed. The ball goes up in the air. Franco Harris picks it up off the ground and runs in for a touchdown to defeat the Raiders 13-7, Jack. I mean, that is one of the plays that I see a lot still being played because of what happened there. It kind of started the Steelers on an upward trend to becoming one of the greatest teams in history. That little run they had.
Franco Harris was in the right place at the right time.
Oh,
Terry Bradshaw was just getting rid of the ball.
Yeah.
He had no idea what happened. He jokes around today saying, I thought I really drilled the ball in there perfectly. And yeah, it was a kind of a fluke play, but one of those wonderful fluke plays we love watching over and over.
Definitely. 1979, the Islanders get their worst shutout in history as they lose 8-0 to the Chicago Blackhawks, Jack. So I don't know about how I don't remember following the Islanders. I mean, I did look at I didn't sit there and watch them on TV. I followed the New York teams in the paper. I don't know if the Islanders were bad that year or not, or
they were awful in the beginning. In the beginning, they were really bad, like most expansion teams. But ultimately, under Coach Al Arba, they got a crop of great young players. I mean, phenomenal players like Brian Trottier and so on. And they went on that run of 4 cups in a row.
Right. So that was their worst shutout in history. And Phil Jackson, in this day, becomes the quickest coach to win 500 games. I think it was like in 682. It didn't hurt that he coached the Chicago Bulls and Los Angeles Lakers, Jack.
No, Phil Jackson, you're basically a condescending snob, But I will say this for Phil Jackson. His greatest coaching year was when he didn't win the championship. When Michael Jordan retired the first time and was playing baseball, he led that Chicago Bull team to a 55-27 record in the regular season. That was a great coaching job by Phil Jackson, and that showed the great coach he was more than the 11 NBA championships as a coach. He also had 2 NBA championships as a player for the New York Knicks.
Very true, Jack.
But we'll remember him as a miserable front office executive more than we would as a role player for the Knicks, and a valuable role player.
A great way to end that. Yes, the Knicks fans will remember that. So, Jack, what a show today, Jack. We had a lot of great guests on, a lot of great information for all the local sports professional teams here. And tomorrow, folks, if everything works out, it's going to be just as busy. We're scheduled to have the Iceman John Scully on with his boxing report, followed by, first we're going to have Carter B with his hockey coverage. We're getting the NHL going with him. We're going to break down the New York Islanders, then followed by, hopefully, John Scully. If he can make it, he's en route to one big boxing match that he has. And then we have Jack's guest. Jack, could you announce that for us?
Yeah, we have Philadelphia boxing promoter Russell Peltz. Well, you could say maybe he's a retired Philadelphia boxing promoter, but he's still involved in boxing. He's a member of the International Boxing Hall of Fame, and the amount of shows he ran in Philadelphia and the fighters he promoted, it's phenomenal. It's great stuff. And Russell's a great historian of the sport as well.
Great information on boxing tomorrow with a little bit of hockey thrown in there. Of course, our other sports stuff we do tomorrow. So, guys, join us tomorrow, same time, 8 to 10 a.m., and we'll bring you the best stuff we can in sports. Have a great day. Enjoy your night, whatever you're doing tonight, and we'll see you tomorrow. Jack, you have a great day.
You too, Mac.